Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the latest drama unfolding in Los Angeles. Today is a beautiful day to unravel the tangled webs of secrets, lies, and betrayals that keep us all on the edge of our seats. Grab your favorite beverage and get comfortable, because the Spencer family is about to face a storm unlike any other, and the emotional fallout will be absolutely devastating. Katie Logan Spencer has never been a woman who ignores her maternal instincts, especially when it comes to the safety and future of her son, Will Spencer. For weeks, Katie has watched with mounting dread as Melissa Dillon entrenched herself deeper into Will's life and the Spencer family orbit. While others might have dismissed Katie's relentless scrutiny as the overprotective paranoia of a wealthy mother, Katie knew better. She could sense the hidden agendas lurking beneath Dillon's seemingly innocent smiles and perfectly timed moments of vulnerability. Refusing to be blinded by the romantic illusion that had completely captivated her son, Katie launched a quiet, meticulous investigation into Dillon's obscured past. She spent countless hours poring over background checks, financial records, and digital footprints, determined to unearth the skeletons she was absolutely certain Dillon was hiding in her closet. The breakthrough Katie had been searching for arrived with a chilling finality that froze the blood in her veins. Hidden deep within a labyrinth of encrypted messages and burner phone logs, Katie discovered a direct, ongoing line of communication between Melissa Dillon and one of the most dangerous, manipulative figures to ever cross paths with their families, the notorious criminal, Remy Price. The revelation hit Katie like a physical blow to the chest. The digital trail was undeniable, painting a horrifying picture of clandestine meetings and coded texts. Dillon was not merely an opportunistic social climber looking for a comfortable life. She was actively consorting with a man whose very name was synonymous with extortion, deceit, and psychological warfare. Remy Price was not a stranger to the devastation of Los Angeles dynasties. His dark history of utilizing deep fakes, blackmail, and underground criminal tactics had already left a trail of trauma in its wake, particularly for Electra Forrester. The realization that this dangerous predator was secretly communicating with a woman sleeping in Will's bed sent Katie into a fierce, protective spiral. This was no longer just a matter of a mother disapproving of her son's new girlfriend. This was a calculated, high-stakes infiltration. Katie's brilliant, strategic mind immediately connected the dots, forming a terrifying conclusion. Dillon was a mole, a Trojan horse planted by Remy Price to systematically dismantle the Spencer empire from the inside out. Armed with a thick manila folder containing the irrefutable evidence of Dillon's deceit, Katie marched toward her son with the unstoppable force of a hurricane. Her heart pounded with a volatile mixture of vindication and profound sorrow. She knew that the documents she held in her hands were going to shatter Will's heart into a million irreparable pieces. Will had spent weeks fiercely defending Dillon, standing as a shield between his new lover and Katie's relentless animosity. He had alienated himself, choosing Dillon's comforting embrace over his mother's warnings. But Katie knew that protecting her son meant delivering the harsh, unvarnished truth, no matter how deeply the initial impact would wound him. The confrontation at Spencer Publications was nothing short of explosive. When Katie dropped the heavy folder onto Will's desk, the resounding thud echoed like a gavel, sealing a grim verdict. Will immediately adopted his defensive posture, his jaw clenching as he prepared for yet another lecture about Dillon's unsuitability. But the fierce, uncompromising fire in Katie's eyes stopped his protests in his throat. She did not yell. Instead, her voice was a chilling, deadly calm as she instructed him to open the file. As Will's eyes scanned the highlighted call logs, the intercepted messages, and the undeniable proof of Dillon's connection to Remy Price, the color violently drained from his face. Katie did not mince her words as she delivered the devastating blow. She laid out her terrifying theory with surgical precision, branding Melissa Dillon as a calculated operative, a mole carefully planted by Remy to infiltrate the Spencer family's inner sanctum. She painted a picture of a grand, sinister conspiracy where Will was nothing more than a wealthy, heartbroken pawn being manipulated by a criminal mastermind and his willing accomplice. Will stared at the papers, his mind desperately trying to reject the reality of the ink on the pages. The woman who had held him, comforted him, and sworn her unwavering devotion was secretly communicating with a monster. The drive back to the beach house felt like a suffocating eternity for Will. The ocean breeze, usually a source of comfort, now felt like a cold, mocking slap against his skin. When he walked through the door, Dylan greeted him with her usual bright, affectionate smile, completely oblivious to the catastrophic storm brewing in his eyes. Without uttering a single word, Will threw the crumpled copies of the communication logs onto the coffee table. The silence in the room stretched until it threatened to snap. As Dylan's gaze fell upon the papers, the bubbly, innocent facade melted away instantly, replaced by a mask of sheer, unadulterated terror. The confrontation that followed was a masterclass in emotional devastation. Will's voice shook with a potent blend of rage and heartbreak as he demanded the truth. Cornered by the undeniable evidence, Dylan broke down into violent, racking sobs. The tears streamed down her face as she finally confessed the dark, shameful secret she had been harboring since the day she arrived in Los Angeles. Remy Price was not just an acquaintance. He was her cousin. They shared the same blood, the same complicated, twisted family tree. But even as she admitted to the biological tie, Dylan fell to her knees, desperately denying Katie's allegations of sabotage plot. Through her tears, Dylan frantically tried to weave a narrative of victimhood and desperation. She swore on her life that she was not an accomplice to Remy's criminal enterprises. She claimed that she had kept her lineage a secret out of profound shame and a paralyzing fear that would abandon her if he knew she was related to such a monster. She painted herself as a woman trying to escape the shadow of her family's dark legacy, insisting that her communications with Remy were merely desperate attempts to keep him away from her new, perfect life. She begged Will to look into her eyes and see the woman who truly loved him, not the cousin of a criminal. Will stood frozen, trapped in a torturous purgatory between his heart and his head. A part of him, the vulnerable, lovesick man who had found solace in her arms after Electra's rejection, desperately wanted to pull her off the floor and believe every single word spilling from her trembling lips. He remembered the quiet nights, the shared secrets, the illusion of a safe haven they had built together. But the cold, hard evidence Katie had provided was a glaring siren he could not ignore. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was rapidly growing roots in his mind, wrapping its suffocating vines around every memory they shared. Just as Will felt his resolve beginning to waver, just as the intoxicating pull of Dylan's tears threatened to drag him back into the illusion, a sudden, sharp knock at the door shattered the heavy atmosphere. Before Will could even move to answer it, the door swung open, and the temperature in the beach house plummeted to freezing. Remy Price stepped across the threshold, his presence radiating an arrogant, sinister energy that seemed to suck the oxygen straight out of the room. The timing of his arrival was too perfect, too devastatingly precise to be a mere coincidence. The monster had arrived at their doorstep. Remy did not even attempt to hide his malicious intentions. Ignoring Will entirely, he zeroed in on a trembling Dylan, his voice dripping with a sickeningly sweet menace. The extortion plot unfolded in real time, right in front of Will's horrified eyes. Remy cornered his cousin, demanding a massive financial payout and threatening to expose even more of her dark, buried secrets if she failed to comply. He mocked her comfortable new setup, sneering at the luxurious beach house and the wealthy Spencer heir she had managed to ensnare. Remy's words were a brutal, undeniable confirmation that Dylan was intrinsically tied to his dark, criminal world. Standing just a few feet away, Will felt the last remaining fragments of his trust shatter into microscopic shards of glass. The scene playing out before him was a horrifying validation of his mother's worst fears. Katie had been right. Every warning, every suspicion, Every harsh word she had spoken against Dylan was now manifesting in the form of this smirking criminal demanding a payoff. Will realized with a sickening jolt that he was not watching a victim being harassed by an estranged relative. He was watching two grifters negotiating the terms of their leverage. The illusion of the innocent, misunderstood girl evaporated completely. A primal, protective rage surged through Will's veins, eclipsing his heartbreak. He stepped forward, placing himself between Dylan and the man who had terrorized so many people he cared about. The tension between the two men crackled like a live wire. Will's voice was a low, dangerous growl as he ordered Remy out of his home, threatening to unleash the full, devastating power of the Spencer Empire upon him if he ever dared to show his face again. Remy merely chuckled, a dark, knowing sound, before raising his hands in mock surrender. He had achieved exactly what he came for, absolute destruction. As Remy slipped out the door, leaving a smug, lingering warning hanging in the air, a deafening silence fell over the beach house. Will slowly turned to face Dylan, but he no longer saw the woman he had fallen in love with. He saw a stranger. He saw a liability. He saw a snake that he had foolishly nurtured and harbored in his own sanctuary. The realization that he had brought this danger into his home, that he had defended this deception against his own mother, gnawed at his soul like a corrosive acid. Dylan reached out a trembling hand, whispering his name, but Will recoiled as if her touch would burn him. The profound sense of betrayal Will experienced in that moment was unlike anything he had ever felt before. His mind spiraled into a dark, unforgiving abyss of paranoia and doubt. He began to question every kiss, every tender touch, every word of comfort Dylan had ever offered him. Was any of it real? Or was he simply the ultimate mark in a highly sophisticated, elaborate extortion scheme engineered by the Price family? The foundation of their relationship had been built on a catastrophic lie. And as Will looked into the tear-filled eyes of the woman who had deceived him, he knew that the Spencer family was about to go to war, and Melissa Dillon was standing on the wrong side of the battlefield.